Welcome back, everybody. My name is Tucker, and in today's video, I'm going to be looking back at the Bleacher Report list for the top 30 NBA players in 2012. I did this before with the 2010 rankings, but for some reason, I couldn't find a 2011 ranking on Bleacher Report, so we're going to have to skip a year and go to 2012. Now, last time, like I said, it was going into the 2010-11 season, and this list was made in April of 2012, just so we're all aware of the timeline. But starting it off here is Al Jefferson at number 30. This is 7 spots lower than he was in the 10-11 list. It says Al Jefferson isn't the greatest self-defender and his reaction times are awful because everything he does is so premeditated, but those are the only bad things I can say about this terrific and underrated big man. You can see his per game stats. He's a great scorer, someone that is going to be pretty close to 20 and 10 at this point in his career. Just defensively was never that much help. Still pretty young at this point in his career, 27, but was all offense, no defense. And then as the league started to go more towards shooting more threes, he was not as effective or helpful. Number 29 now is 35-year-old Tim Duncan. Last time we did this list, Duncan was listed at 15, so 14 spots down for him. It says Tim Duncan may retire at the end of this season, but that would only be due to age and not a steep decline in production. You can see his per game stats at 35 years old, still very, very good, especially the rim protection at 1.5 blocks, shifted over to pretty much being full-time at the 5 spot later in his career and really anchored the defense for the San Antonio Spurs in those battles with, the LeBron James-led Miami Heat, in which they were able to win a championship and essentially end that era. Number 28 now, a player that was not listed last time we did this top 30. That is Greg Monroe at 21 years old. You can see his stats averaging about 16 and 10 and 2 assists. It says, now we come to the young big man for the Detroit Pistons, who has been playing out of his mind this season and is absolutely snubbed for berth in this year's All-Star game. Greg Monroe, early in his career, was someone that a lot of people were excited about with his post-game, with his ability to pass, with his not necessarily defensive abilities, but he was at least trying. He was active and just a big body in the paint. With the Pistons initially, he was really good, and then he signed a pretty surprising deal with Milwaukee in free agency. It was just weird to see someone leave their team and sign with the Bucks as a smaller market team, and never really did anything for the Bucks and has bounced around ever since. It was only really good with the Pistons. Number 27 now, a new player once again to the top 30, a 20-year-old Kyrie Irving coming off the season, which he averaged about 19 and 5.5. Says, first of all, let me just say that it would be an absolute travesty if Kyrie Irving didn't manage to take home the Rookie of the Year award despite his prolonged absence due to injury in recent days. After all, he's 45 spots ahead of the second best rookie in these rankings. Kyrie, initially with Cleveland, was everything that people would have expected him to be as a scorer, at times as a facilitator as well, was never really able to lead the Cavs to a very significant win total before LeBron got there, or before LeBron came back. But this is a guy that was really, really good initially as a rookie, like I said, as a scorer, and then just needed a little bit of help once LeBron got there and obviously ended up becoming an NBA champion, but already at 20 years old, nearly a top 25 NBA player. Number 26 now, Manu Ginobili, 4 spots lower than he was last time. You can see his stats there, 12, 3, and 4.5. It says Manu Ginobili may be 34, but he definitely hasn't lost a step yet. I'm even more sure that he hasn't lost a Euro step. I would have appreciated a little bit more analysis from them, but 34-year-old Manu Ginobili still nearly a top 25 player in the league and stuck around with the Spurs for a couple seasons after this and was crucial once again to those teams, to that team, that did end up beating the Miami Heat in the finals. Speaking of the Heat, number 25 now, Chris Bosh, who was previously listed at 13, so he went down 12 spots, but when he was ranked 13, that was the summer in which he went to the Heat, so he dropped down a little bit just because his role was much different with the Heat. Says all the people have been saying the Miami Heat's big 3 officially can't be called anything but a big 2 anymore, need to get a grip. Chris Bosh may not be on the same level as LeBron James and Dwayne Wade, but he's still an absolutely fantastic basketball player. You can see his averages 18 and 8, about 2 assists, a block, and a steal per game. And I think people really underestimate how much Chris Bosh meant to those Heat teams, how good he was for them, and just how much he meant defensively when he slid over to the 5, created a little bit more spacing for D. Wade and LeBron. And anybody that wants to say that Chris Bosh wasn't a huge part of those teams is just not evaluating his value properly, in my opinion. Number 24 now, Zach Randolph was not listed in the last top 30. It says, I'm just in shock that a player who I can jump higher than is in the top 25. You can see his per game stats, 12, 8, and 2. He's a really talented player, Zach Randolph, with the Memphis Grizzlies, and it's kind of weird that his stats are the way that they are, unless this is a season in which he's just coming off some injuries or something and just wasn't playing as well. But Zach Randolph is at 24. 23 is Paul Pierce, who was listed at 19 in the last ranking, so he went down 4 spots. 34 years old at this point, averaging about 25 and 5. Paul Pierce is out to prove the doubters wrong this season. All those who think the 34-year-old is old and washed up, well, they are wrong. Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, Rondo, Ray Allen, all those guys stuck around. Rondo, not really because he was younger, but those three older guys stuck around and really made some noise later on in their careers, much later than people thought that they would once they got a little bit older. And obviously, eventually, Pierce and Garnett did end up getting traded to the Nets, but he did drop down 4 spots between the last time that we did this. Number 22 now, Josh Smith, who was at 29 the last time, so he's actually up 7 spots. At the time, still with the Atlanta Hawks, age 26, averaging 19, 10, and 4. So if you're looking for a reason why the Hawks have managed to hang around all season, look no further than Josh Smith. The power forward who can also capably play small forward, literally does everything on the basketball court. And this is pretty close to the time that he ended up signing the big deal with the Detroit Pistons and then got cut 2 years into it and was just never the same player. But Josh Smith is one of those guys that I wish would have been able to play the way that in the league, the way that it is now with the spacing. He would have been such a good combo 4-5 and probably would have worked on his three-point shot a lot more, and he would have been a crazy good modern NBA player, but was still very good, a top 25 player at the time of this list. Number 21, Tyson Chandler, not ranked last time. You can see his per-game stats, about 12, 10, and 1.5 blocks. So it's time that we stop taking Tyson Chandler's contributions for granted. The big man is a source of the most efficient offensive production in the NBA, at least according to his true shooting percentage, effective field goal percentage, and offensive rating, all of which are tops in the NBA. At the time, he's 29 years old with the Knicks. He was a huge part of that Dallas Mavericks championship team in 2011, and then ended up getting a new deal to go play for the Knicks and was pretty crucial to the 1 or 2 really good Knicks teams that they had while Melo was there. Number 20, Steve Nash, at this point still with the Suns, had not gone to the Lakers yet. He was ranked at 16 in the last ranking, so he's actually gone down 4 spots. Says, what good would a top 20 be if it didn't include Steve Nash, man who's going to have to be considered a legendary point guard almost as soon as he retires. You can see his per-game stats still very, very high in assists. 38 years old, though. Age definitely caught up to him very soon after this ranking once he went to the Lakers and pretty much fell off the map from there. Number 19, Pau Gasol, who was at 10 the last time that we did these rankings. 17 and 10 is per-game stats. For all the negative comments about Pau Gasol's lack of toughness, he still managed to play the game of basketball with remarkably effective finesse. He's someone that, again, just like Chris Bosh, I feel like people undervalued his contributions to those championship teams with the Lakers, especially once Andrew Bynum went down, which is something I talked about a little bit the last time that we looked at these rankings. But Pau Gasol, even at age 31, still a top 20 player. Number 18, James Harden, not listed in the last rankings, 22 years old at the time, still with the Thunder, averaging about 17, 4, and 4. Says, now I'm guessing that James Harden's ranking is going to draw quite a few complaints, but I'm cool with that. I wouldn't have included him here if I didn't truly believe that he was a top 20 player in the NBA right now. And it's kind of weird to think. I mean, obviously he's still 22. He's still coming off the bench for Oklahoma City. Gets traded to the Rockets pretty soon after that. But it's just weird to think about the fact that this guy has to defend the fact that he thinks that James Harden is a top 20 player, because once he got to Houston, obviously now having won an MVP, he's pretty clearly one of the best players in the entire league. Absolutely top 10. Where you want to rank him in that is up to you. But this guy was a little bit ahead of the curve, I would say, judging by how he feels like he has to defend. James Harden is the 18th best player in the league. Number 17, Dirk. He was ranked at 9 last time, so he went down 8 spots. 33 years old. You can see his per-game stats. Says, Dirk struggled through the beginning of the season before picking it back up, but his struggles definitely weren't enough to knock him out of the top 20 players in the league. Had fairly recently come off of an NBA championship the year before, his first in his career, and one that really solidified him as a lot of people's favorite players and really helped boost his legacy, if that's something that you really want to be concerned about. And at this point in his career, he's still putting up, about 20 and 7 every night, and was obviously a top 20 player in the league. Number 16, Blake, was not listed last time, age 23 at this point, averaging 20 and 10. It says Blake Griffin has now been called overrated so many times that he might be a bit underrated. For all the complaints about his softness, his attitude in the court, his sense of entitlement, and his one-dimensional game, Griffin is one heck of a player. That's one thing that is just kind of funny to me, to think about Blake Griffin as this one-dimensional player, because he's actually one of the best passing big men that we've had in the league over the last 10 or so years. You can see he's only averaging about 3 assists there, but once he got a little bit more control of the offense, once Chris Paul left, as well as now with the Pistons, he's shown himself to be an extremely effective and versatile offensive player, and obviously moved up the rankings, I believe, at this point. Moving forward, once we look at more of these, he'll be higher than 16. Number 15, Tony Parker, was not listed last time, age 29. It says the French point guard has enjoyed a sensational season, one that should have garnered significantly more MVP talk than it did. Averaged almost 19, about 8 a game, and 1 steal. It's crazy that he wasn't listed last time, because he was 27 at the time, but he just continue to do what he does for the Spurs, score effectively, run the offense well. I don't know about the whole MVP talk thing with those stats, and there were certainly some really deserving players for MVP going into this season as well as the prior year, but Tony Parker is ranked in the top 15. 14, Rajon Rondo. He was 11 last time, so he went down 3 spots at age 26 at this point, averaging about 12 and 12. It says Rondo is the most unique player in the league. Yes, that includes LeBron, Kevin Love, and all the other players who might be described as unique. Inevitably, people will gripe that Rondo belongs in the top 10, and obviously he has him ranked at 14, so a little bit outside of the top 10. I don't think that it would have been an issue to put Rondo in the top 10 at this point. He was, in some games, the best player in the finals, in the couple of finals that he appeared in with the Celtics. In the postseason, he was just an incredible player. Number 13, LaMarcus Aldridge, also not listed last time, 26 years old at this point, coming off of a season which he averaged almost 22 a game. It says now in his 6th season in the NBA, LaMarcus Aldridge has continued to quietly go about his business and get better. The result is that he's now firmly surpassed Dirk and Blake as the second best player at his position. He's someone that actually ended up leaving Portland not long after this to go to San Antonio a couple seasons after this, but always an effective scorer, not an outstanding defender, but someone that is going to be very tough to stop if he's hitting his shots. If he's hitting his mid-range jumpers, he's going to kill you in the post, and you're not going to really be able to do much about it. So LaMarcus Aldridge ranked 13. Number 12, Andrew Bynum, not listed last time, 24 years old at the time. It says, although I can't say that the same for his maturity, Andrew Bynum's game has made tremendous progress this season, and he can now at least enter into the running for the, quote, best center in the league title with Dwight Howard. And this is, I don't exactly remember the timeline, but this is relatively close to when he ended up being traded to the Sixers and his career was basically over. But Andrew Bynum, everybody always knew he was talented. He did struggle with both immaturity as well as injury issues at times, but having him ranked 12th in the league in terms of the best players in the league was not a crazy take at all at the time of this list. Number 11, Darren Williams, was 7 last time, so he went down 4 spots, ranked age 27 at the time. For the Nets at the time as well, averaging about 21 and 9. It says, as much as I love Darren Williams, his stats are a little bit inflated by his role on the Nets. That's absolutely true. When D-Will got there, the Nets had basically nobody other than him and Brook Lopez to score, so he got so many shots, so many opportunities to score and create, shot a ton of threes, and that's why his points are so high. But he also created a good amount of offense for others as well, obviously with 9 assists. Number 10, Carmelo Anthony, who was ranked at 8 last time, so he went down 2 spots at this point now with the New York Knicks and 27 years old. Said for much of the season it appeared as though Carmelo Anthony had lost it, and the New York Knicks were going to regret trading all their young potential to bring him home to Madison Square Garden. That was never more true than during the beginning of Linsanity, when Knicks fans went so far as to hope that he didn't return so that Jeremy Lin could continue balling out. This was a fairly tenuous time for the Knicks between Melo, Mike D'Antoni, and the whole Linsanity thing made Melo almost seem to take, it almost seemed appropriate for Melo to take a backseat. He picked up his game afterwards, and they ended up playing much better. And then obviously things went downhill, and he ended up with the Thunder and the Rockets. And now he's just sitting at home watching basketball. But Melo still ranked as a top 10 player at this point. Number 9, Russell Westbrook, who was 21 last time, so he's gone up 12 spots. Age 23, you can see the per game averages there are ridiculous for an age 23 player. It says, I've finally figured out the reason for Russell Westbrook's inexplicable decisions to pull up early in the shot clock and shoot jumpers. He's so athletic, so explosive, and so good at scoring that it just wouldn't be fair to the rest of the league if he always played smart. And that's something that even all the way back, all these years ago, people still complained about Russ's shot selection, his decision-making at times, but you can't deny the guy is incredibly talented, incredibly athletic, and was legitimately, this is not a bad ranking at all to have him the 9th best player in the league. Number 8 now, Kevin Love, was not listed last time, 23 years old at the time, hadn't officially requested to leave the Timberwolves because LeBron hadn't come back to the Cavs yet. It was a couple more seasons before that happened. Said, winning the battle of the former UCLA Bruins is Kevin Love. I'm sure he's going to rub this one in a lot next time he meets up with Russell Westbrook. You can see his per game averages with the Timberwolves were nuts. This is historical stuff, and I've talked about that in a few videos before. He averaged 26 and 13 with the Timberwolves, was never able to get them to the postseason, but he was absolutely insane with Minnesota. Number 7 now, Dwight Howard. He was 6 last time, so not a huge drop. 26 years old, averaging about 20, 15, and 2 blocks a game. Says even though Andrew Bynum is quickly improving and the overall quality of the centers in the NBA is slowly starting to improve, Dwight remains head and shoulders above the rest of the players at his position. This is a point in time in which Dwight Howard was a consistent defensive player of the year threat, was the centerpiece of a Magic team that did end up going to the finals during his time with the Magic. And even though after his trade request and he went to the Lakers and then the Rockets and then the Hornets and then the Wizards and all these different places, and people didn't really like Dwight Howard for all those decisions. He was a stupid good player. He was crazy good for the Magic, just such an absolute force and someone that was perfect for what they were trying to do, just surround him with a whole bunch of shooters. So Dwight Howard at 7th in the league. Number 6, D Rose was at 12, went up 6 spots, age 23. It says if Derrick Rose's follow-up season to his MVP campaign hadn't been quite so littered with injuries, he might have been a bit higher than 6. And that's always been the sad part about D Rose's career, is he had that great MVP season, and then just continued to struggle with injuries year after year after year. And I'm sure as we continue to look at these rankings, he's going to fall even lower than 6. Number 5, Kobe Bryant, who was ranked number 1 last time, went down 4 spots. It says all that I need to say here is that Kobe has retained the one skill set that has carried his career so far. He takes anything and everything personally and wants to prove any and all doubters as wrong as possible. This is, again, a little bit before the Lakers ended up trading for Steve Nash and tried to create a quote-unquote super team with guys like Dwight Howard. That didn't go well at all. At this point in Kobe's career, 33 years old, still scoring at an incredible rate, so not a bad idea to have him ranked as the 5th best player in the league. Number 4 is Chris Paul, who was number 5 last time. It says, right now, there's no doubt in my mind that Chris Paul is the best point guard that the NBA has to offer. While leading the NBA in steals and terrifying the heck out of all opposing floor generals with his defensive prowess, CP3 still manages to remain an incredible offensive player. At this point, he had been traded to the Clippers, was in complete command of the Clippers offense at this point, and those Clippers teams really should have at least made the conference finals, if not the finals, at some point during the CP3, DeAndre Jordan, Blake Griffin era, and it just never happened. Number 3 now, D Wade. He was ranked number 4 last time, 30 years old at this point. It says, yes, the Miami Heat are 12-1 without Dwayne Wade in the lineup, but don't let the small sample size and increased play of LeBron James fool you into thinking that diminishes his value. And there's not really much to say here. There's nothing wrong at all with having Dwayne Wade as a top 3 player in the league at this point that this list was made. Number 2, Kevin Durant, who was number 3 last time, and we know who's going to be number 1. You can see his per game averages, absolutely nuts. It says coming in at number 2 is Kevin Durant, the player who should finish as the runner-up for NBA MVP. And then number 1, obviously, is going to be LeBron James, who was number 2 last time. And I would imagine this is going to be 1-2 for the next couple of seasons, unless Steph sneaks his way in there over the next couple of rankings. But I'm going to end it there, looking at the top 30 NBA players at the end of the 2012 season, April of 2012. I'm going to continue to do this. We're going to go year by year by year by year, as long as I can find an article on Bleacher Report ranking these players. It's just interesting to see how things change up and down from year to year. And that's really where the interest comes for me, is just looking at the old list, comparing it to the new list, and seeing where things go. But like I said, my name is Tucker. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you missed any of my previous videos, then be sure to check out the boxes on screen. Thanks again, and I'll see you all next time.